What is sanctification, and is progressive sanctification actually biblical? Well, here's the reality. The simple truth about sanctification is that there are two types in the New Testament. First, there's the sanctification, the setting apart of who you are. And then there's the setting apart of what you do. So we have to separate our identity from our performance, because otherwise we end up with a conflated view, one view of sanctification that ends up saying we are progressively getting sanctified as people. Are you progressively being set apart for God? No, you've been set apart. You're a person of God's own possession. God paid Jesus for you. You've been bought back with a price, and you belong to God all the way. But let's face it, not all of your attitudes and actions are set apart, are they? So can you see why it's important for us to separate who we are from what we do? Now, let's talk about who we are for a minute. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 10 says that you have been sanctified, past tense. That means that you as a person have been set apart. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 tells us the same thing. You used to be in Adam as a sinner, but you were washed, and you were justified, and you were sanctified. Notice that all three of those are expressed in past tense. At the same moment that you were justified, you were also sanctified. I know what you've heard. People have used sanctification as a synonym for growth. And so they're not on board, are they? They say, no, you haven't been sanctified. You're still growing. You haven't been sanctified. You're still learning. Your performance is not perfect. But remember, we haven't talked about performance yet, have we? We're still talking about that first type of sanctification that happened at salvation when you were justified and sanctified. You were set apart for God as a person of His own possession. Now, Peter tells us to be holy or be sanctified in all of your behavior. Do you see the difference? Not every attitude and action has been set apart. So that's in process, and it's a glorious adventure. The pressure is off. I mean, as you learn and as you grow, you're forgiven and righteous and holy the entire time. So there's no pressure in it, and it can be a beautiful thing to watch as God renews our minds and teaches us the truth that sets us free. But remember, when it comes to sanctification of who you are, you're heaven ready. You're not 42% sanctified or 81% sanctified. If Christ were to return for you in this very moment, He would take you to heaven. That's right, the real you. He wouldn't need to do a last-minute cleanup job on aisle 4. Do you see that sanctification of who you are is different from sanctification of what you do? When you realize the two types of sanctification spoken of in the New Testament, you can do away with the false idea that you, as a person, are progressively getting cleaned up for God. That's simply not the case. You're heaven ready. You're set apart. You belong to God, and you are worth Jesus. Now, that's something to truly celebrate.